I want to talk to you a little bit about self-compassion and why I think it's so important to your performance. Now, when you think of self-compassion, what comes to mind? What are some immediate thoughts you have? A lot of people think weak, emotional, letting myself off too easy, nothing to do with performance or high performance, but just something that, it's too fluffy for me. Self-compassion's actually been researched a lot. And out of this research, what they found was that the people who had more self-compassion in their lives, who practiced more self-compassion, they had more resiliency, so they were able to bounce back from mistakes faster and stronger. They were able to have better dialogue and positive self-talk, which led to more confidence in their ability to perform. And self-compassion was actually linked to high performance, believe it or not. So why do I think self-compassion is important? Because confidence, again, the two ways that confidence generates or is created is the way you talk to yourself and acting, using your body to become confident. So self-compassion is really important to have the skills to be able to talk to yourself so that you can perform your best every single time. Now, Dr. Kristin Neff, she dedicated her whole research life to this concept called self-compassion, and she broke it down into 3 different characteristics, 3 elements that make self-compassion. The first thing that we have to understand about self-compassion is this whole notion of self-kindness versus self-judgment or self-criticism. Now, what does that even mean? So I love the story that Dr. Kristin Neff uses. She does a lot of these talks, these keynote leadership talks, and she opens up her talk and she asks the question, okay, I want to ask many of you out here in the audience, all of you, to think about this. When your best friend makes a mistake, how do you talk to that person? Just imagine what you would say to this person, your best friend, after they made a mistake. Now, I want you to imagine that you made the same exact mistake. How would you talk to yourself after that mistake? And she says, I bet your self-talk to yourself after that mistake would be very different from how you talk to your best friend. And she asked, why is this? Why are we so hard on ourselves when we make a mistake? But yet, with our best friends, we are very encouraging. We're positive. We're hopeful. We're helpful. She says we have to begin to start talking to ourselves like talking to our best friend. So we have to coach ourselves to become our own best friend. Self-kindness versus self-judgment. Self-judgment is we berate ourselves. We just crush ourselves thinking that that's what we're supposed to do to never make that mistake again so that we can become better. But the research shows that the more you do that, the more you start crushing yourself and judging yourself and criticizing yourself, even though you think that it's helping you to become better, actually makes things worse. It leads to more a lesson and a dip of self-esteem, self-confidence, self-motivation. Self-compassion, self-kindness is really about being able to talk to yourself kindly, not judging yourself, but picking yourself up like you would your best friend. The second piece to self-compassion is something called common universality versus isolation. Now, what does that mean? Common universality basically means that whatever you're experiencing, this pain, this mistake, this feeling of failure, whatever you're feeling is common. It's a universal experience that's part of life. So accepting that, welcoming that, and knowing that this is part of life, that, hey, I made a mistake, but that makes me human. Having that belief allows you to identify with the common universal experience. So you're not alone. But what happens after we make a mistake or we have a terrible round or a terrible result after a performance? What do we tend to do? If you're anything like me, when I feel very shameful, I don't want to show my face to anyone around me, especially close to me. I don't want them to ask how I did. I just want to be left alone. I isolate myself. But that's probably one of the worst things that you can do after a hiccup or a mistake. Common universality is knowing and understanding that this is a part of life. That, hey, I'm human, but I'm growing. I'm getting better. And there's lessons that I can take from this. The third piece, the final piece to self-compassion, is something called mindfulness versus over-identification. Mindfulness is becoming aware of the thoughts that you're having rather than over-identifying with it. So, for example, let's say you're a golfer and I hit something out of bounds and I have a 2-stroke penalty. All of a sudden I say, oh my gosh, not only can I not hit my drive straight, but now I'm a terrible golfer. I'm a terrible son. I'm a terrible husband. We over-identify with this mistake rather than becoming mindful of the thoughts that we're having and welcoming the thoughts as part of the universal experience. I hit an out of bounds, or I hit my shot error, and I say, well, okay, what am I starting to say to myself? Catch that, redirect it, be mindful of it, and focus on what you can control. Self-compassion are these 3 elements. On the positive side of what we need to cultivate and practice more is self-kindness, a common universality experience, a belief that we're not alone, and mindfulness, not over-identifying with the thought, just becoming mindful of the thoughts that we're having and letting the bad thoughts go and re-engaging with the positive processed thoughts that we can have. On the negative side of things that are the opposite of self-compassion is self-judgment and self-criticism, isolation, when we tend to isolate and not want to see anyone, and then over-identification. So I want you to really work on these things. I want you to be able to coach yourself and talk to yourself as if you are your own best friend. Now remember that when you're out there performing, it's the way you dialogue with yourself. It's the way you talk to yourself that's going to engage and create more confidence in your life right now. So remember, self-compassion is not for the weak. Self-compassion is linked to higher resilience, higher performance, and better results.